third Nimi Briggs legacy lecture. Our scholar, a distinguished medical icon, and a former Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt, Professor Emeritus Nimi Dimkpa Briggs. This year's legacy lecture will be delivered by Professor Attahiru Jega, OFR, former Chairman of INEC and current Special Advisor and Coordinator, Presidential Livestock Reform. Topic: a credible electoral system for Nigeria's national development. Dates: Tuesday, 24th February 2026. Time: 2 p.m. prompt. Venue: CBN Center of Excellence Auditorium, Uniport. Join leading academics, policymakers, and members of the public for a rich intellectual engagement that speaks to Nigeria's democracy and future. Be part of history. Be part of ideas that shape nations. This message is signed by the publicity team, Nimi Briggs Professorial Chair of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Uniport.
May I please have your attention? We are really so delighted today to have every one of you here seated for this very wonderful third Nimi Dimkpa Briggs Legacy Lecture Series, organized by the Nimi Briggs Chair of Obstetrics and Gynecology, University of Port Harcourt. And of course, today is a wonderful day, and we want to specially welcome everyone to the unique University of Port Harcourt. We sincerely apologize. We are some minutes behind schedule. Please, we sincerely apologize for that. We want to start this program. I would like everyone to be seated and be very comfortable, because you are one of the foremost hospitality universities in this part of the world. Thank you very much. If you look at the program here, the program booklet, you go to page 11. That is why we have the order of proceedings for today. And the first one is the arrival of guests and photos, which has already been taken. So may I respectfully invite everyone to rise as we take the national anthem. Immediately after that, the next will be the university anthem. As we rise on our feet, thank you. University anthem. Please be seated. Thank you. This is time for us to recognize the dignitaries that are here with us today. And I have the honor and the privilege to welcome everyone. Other principal officers of the university here seated. I have the honor to inform us that the Deputy Vice Chancellor Administration of the University, Professor Chukwudi Onyeaso, is also here. You're welcome, sir. And we also respectfully welcome in our midst today the Deputy Vice Chancellor, Academic of the University, Professor Rosemary Ogu. We have the honor again to welcome the Deputy Vice Chancellor of Research and Development, Professor Angela Frank Briggs. Welcome, ma'am. Thank you very much. Also here today, we are privileged to have the Registrar of the University of Port Harcourt, Dr. Gloria Chinda, seated. We also have the University Librarian, Professor Helen Emarciello. Thank you very much. Let me also inform us today that we have a very distinguished scholar, a man who has held several positions within and outside the shores of Nigeria. I have the honor at this point in time to respectfully welcome in our midst today a scholar, very resourceful, very cerebral. I'm talking about the former INEC chairman, who is also the Special Advisor and Coordinator of the Presidential Livestock Reform of the Federal Republic of Nigeria, Professor Attahiru Muhammadu, Jega, OFR. Please put your hands together for him. You're welcome to the unique University of Port Harcourt. Thank you very much. May I also very respectfully inform us that the chair occupant of the Nimi Briggs Chair of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Professor Ngozi Orazurike, is also here. Thank you very much, Ma. She's been working tirelessly to make sure that this program becomes a success. Thank you for all you do. Thank you very much. Let me also very respectfully, at this point in time, inform us that the wife of our great scholar, medical icon, I'm talking about the wife of Emeritus Professor Nimi Dimkpa Briggs, is seated here in our midst today. She is Lady Data Nimi Briggs. Put your hands together for her. You're welcome, Ma. You're welcome. And then we also have on the high table here someone who has a very special assignment in our midst today. I'm talking about Professor Fidelis Allen of the Faculty of Social Sciences, seated here. He has a very special assignment to deliver today. And at the appointed time, you will see him. I don't want to let the cat out of the bag. At the appointed time, you're going to hear from him. Thank you very much. Let me very respectfully introduce other very distinguished personalities we have in our midst today. We are blessed to have Emeritus Professor Joseph Ajayinka, the 7th Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt. You're welcome, sir. Welcome, sir. We are also blessed to have in our midst today Professor Ibrahim Yakasai, the President of the West African College of Surgeons, the Vice Chancellor, Federal University of Health Science and Technology, SAFE, and a distinguished Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. We are also blessed to have in our midst today Professor Marwan Al-Qaidi, the Vice Chancellor of Wingwe University. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. I have the honor to also recognize the presence of Professor Steve Okodudu, the former acting Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. I also like to recognize Professor Christy Mato, the former acting Vice Chancellor of Palmo University Medical Sciences, River State. You're welcome, man. We are also I'd like to specially recognize a scholar, Emeritus Professor Mark Anikbo is here seated. You're welcome, sir. Professor Mark Anikbo is also here with a beautiful wife. You're welcome, man. Thank you very much. We like to respectfully introduce another very distinguished scholar, a senior advocate of Nigeria in our midst today. We are blessed to have distinguished legal luminary and former president of the Nigeria Bar Association, Barrister OCJ Okocha, SAN. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Let me also very respectfully introduce Dr. Naito Orazurike, the Group Managing Director of Genesis Foods Nigeria Limited. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Thank you, sir. You've been working behind the scenes. Thank you very much. Thank you. And we can see the result today. Thank you very much. We are also blessed to have Professor Yopu Suminaye, the former DVC Research and Development of the university. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. I also have the honor to very respectfully introduce our First Lady, the wife of the Vice Chancellor of the University of Port Harcourt, and the President of the University of Port Harcourt Women Association, Professor Udeme Wunari Georgewell. You're welcome, ma. You're welcome. Thank you very much. I would like to respectfully welcome Professor Bene Willie Abe, former DVC Research and Development, University of Port Harcourt. You're welcome. You're welcome, ma. He's also here with a husband. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much, sir. We also have in our midst today the Chief Medical Director of Palmo University Teaching Hospital, Port Harcourt, River State, Dr. Akaniye Ubom. Dr. Akaniyene Ubom. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Thank you. We also have the Chief Medical Director of River State University Teaching Hospital, Port Harcourt, Professor Chizindu Aleko. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much. And we have the honor to respectfully welcome the Chief Medical Director, University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital, Professor Chichuru Godswill Oluwene. You're welcome, sir. We also have in our midst today the immediate past occupant, Nimi Briggs Chair of Obstetrics and Gynecology, Professor John Ikimalo. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. We also have the Provost of the College of Health Sciences, University of Port Harcourt, Professor Ngozi Ekeke. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. We have a former registrar of the University of Port Harcourt, Dr. Doka Soto, is in our midst today. You're welcome, man. Thank you very much, man. Thank you very much. And then we have the chairperson, International Federation of Women Lawyers, FIDA, River State, Barrister Tamunu Boemi, live judge. You're welcome, man. You're welcome. Thank you very much. And we also have the honor to respectfully welcome the President, Pediatrics Association of Nigeria, Professor Petrolina Nnenna Tabansi. You're welcome, man. You're welcome. And then we have the Dean, Faculty of Clinical Sciences, River State University, Port Harcourt, Professor Asomta Udechi Chabjombo. You're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome. Very quickly, because I'm almost done, we have Professor Priye Fieba, the Dean, Faculty of Clinical Sciences, University of Port Harcourt. You're welcome. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. We also have the Chairman, River State Independent Electoral Commission, RISEC River State, Dr. Michael Ode, represented by Professor Mrs. Akanewo. You're welcome, ma'am. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much. We also have a member of the River State Independent Electoral Commission, RISEC, Professor Mrs. Akanewo. You're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Let me also welcome Dr. Chris Tamuno, former registrar, University of Port Harcourt. You're welcome. You're welcome, ma. You're welcome. It's a delight to see you again. Thank you very much. Let me also respectfully welcome Dr. Nnenna Onyekwere, the Chairman Interparty Advisory Council, IPAC, in our midst today. You're welcome. He's not here alone. He's here with the officials of the association here, Dr. Nnenna Onyekwere, Honorable Ben Ogbubula, Austin Green, Engineer Lawrence, James Jaja. They are all together. You're welcome. We recognize it. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Let me also very respectfully inform us that the Bishop, Diocese of Calabari Anglican Communion, is in our midst today. Reverend Dr. Boma Peter Briggs, the Bishop, Diocese of Calabari. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. We'd like to especially welcome the Reverend Albert Ijo of Ijok. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. You're welcome. It's a delight to see you. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Let me very quickly recognize the family of Emeritus Professor Nimi Briggs, and that will bring us to the end of the introduction. Let me respectfully inform us that we had earlier introduced the wife of our late icon, medical icon. I'm talking about Emeritus Professor Nimi Briggs. The wife is already seated here, Lady Data Nimi Briggs. You're welcome once again. And then we also have the son of late Professor Nimi Briggs, architect Nina Nimi Briggs is seated here. Please, sir, can we see you? You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. And we also have Mrs. Toju Briggs, wife of architect Nina Briggs. You're welcome, ma. You're welcome. Thank you very much. We also have the honor to introduce to us Kika and Tunde Tasiamadi, daughter and son-in-law. You're welcome to this occasion. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We also have Boma Nini Briggs, Nimi Briggs. You're welcome, ma. Boma Nimi Briggs, the daughter. Thank you very much. We also have Professor Mrs. Nengia and Professor Felix Ideria. You're welcome to this occasion. They belong to the family. They belong to the family, rather. Let me also inform us, let's recognize Opuda Chief Barrister Dumolulu Briggs from the family, the Paramount Head Uruwari Chieftaincy War Kenu House of Abloma. Abonima, you're welcome, you're welcome. We also want to recognize that the Chairman of Agricultural Area Council of Traditional Rulers, His Majesty King Dr. Disrael Gogo Bob Manuel II. We are also respecting him in our midst today. You are welcome. I'd like to inform us that we also have very distinguished deans of faculties seated here today. All the deans, you're welcome. We also like to welcome all our directors of centers and institutes in the University of Port Harcourt. We respectfully welcome you and we acknowledge your presence. We also have heads of department and units within the university. You're all welcome. And our special guests today who travel far and wide and near to be part of this occasion. Please, you're welcome to Unique University of Port Harcourt. And on a final note, I'd like to welcome all the students and the staff of the university who are here today to listen to this wonderful lecture that has to do with the importance of a credible electoral system for Nigeria's national development, to be delivered by this special icon, Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, OFRO. Thank you very much. As time progresses, we shall continue to recognize guests within our midst. But because of time, we have to continue to the rest of the programs here today. May I respectfully, at this point in time, hand over the microphone to the Vice Chancellor of the University of Port Harcourt, Professor Winner Abraham Georgewell, for the opening remarks. Please put your hands together for the Vice Chancellor.
Thank you. Yeah. Good afternoon, everyone. I think today the PRO really took time to establish the. Please, let's have applause for him. So there is nothing to add to the protocol. He has really done a good job today. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, when the lecture topic or title came out, some people called me. And the chair is chair on obstetric and gynecology. Why on electoral system? And I asked the person, do you know the man Nimi Briggs? He said to some extent. I said, you don't know that that man is just beyond obstetrics and gynecology? A man who was the chief umpire for RISEC, a man who has been pro-chancellor for 3 universities, a man who was chairman of FGN ASU agreement, a man who has been this and that, and you think it can be limited to only obstetrics and gynecology. No. Leadership is an epitome of leadership. When I said that, the person said, oh, I didn't know all this. I said, now that you know, he said, the lecture is in order. It is with profound honor and a deep sense of institutional pride that I warmly welcome you all to the 3rd Nimi Briggs Legacy Lecture Series, holding here at the University of Port Harcourt. An institution is cherished deeply throughout its lifetime, and to whose growth and development it devoted its time, its wisdom, and its immense wealth of experience. Oh, how time flies. Though he's gone, yet his legacies continue to endure. Though we deeply miss his presence, we are comforted by the indelible footprints he left on the sands of time. Today's lecture immortalizes the towering legacy of late Emeritus Professor Nimi Dimkpa Briggs, an iconic scholar, distinguished medical practitioner, former Vice Chancellor, a patriot whose life embodied intellectual rigor, administrative courage, and uncompromising commitment to national service. Former this, former that. To honor him is not simply to remember him. It is to continue the conversation that shaped society. Today's theme, importance of a credible electoral system for national growth, Nigeria's national development, will not be more urgent. It is my belief that protection of electoral integrity is key. And when that happens, democracy gains strength. We are therefore deeply privileged to have in the House an eminent authority whose career has been intimately connected with the architecture of Nigeria's electoral evolution. Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, OFR, former chairman of INEC, and current special advisor and coordinator of the presidential livestock reform. His presence here today transformed this event from a mere lecture into a national conversation. The University of Port Harcourt has always stood as a crucible of ideas, bold, interrogative, and transformative. We do not shy away from difficult questions here. We embrace them. But universities must not only produce graduates, they must produce vision. We don't just award degrees here. We shape destinies and partake in societal development. Let this gathering send a clear message that the intellectual discourse is not detached from national progress. It is central to it. That credible elections are not a political luxury. They are a developmental necessity. And that the University of Port Harcourt commits itself to sustaining platforms where truth is examined, ideas are tested, and the future is shaped. I sincerely appreciate Professor Ngozi C. Orazulike, the current chair occupant of the Nimi Briggs Chair of Obstetrics and Gynecology, for putting up this event. I want to wholeheartedly thank the family of our late icon, the family, friends, and associates of late Emeritus Professor N.D. Briggs for sustaining the values he once lived for. On behalf of the Governing Council, the management, senior staff, and students, and the entire University of Port Harcourt community, I warmly welcome you all. And may this lecture advance both knowledge and nationhood. Thank you. God bless us all. Thank you very much.
Please, can we do better? Let's encourage the Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt. Thank you very much. Thank you. We deeply appreciate the kind welcome address from our Vice Chancellor. Thank you very much. Let me very quickly recognize the presence of the former Chief Medical Director of University of Port Harcourt Teaching Hospital, Professor Aaron Ojele. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. And we also want to recognize the presence of the former President, Medical Women's Association of Nigeria, Dr. Claribel Abam. You're welcome, ma. You're welcome, ma. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much. And I'd like to inform us that we have a Rise News in our midst today. You can see them. NTA, the network, the best network, one of the best network we have. Thank you very much. I'm emphasizing because they have the largest coverage. You know that? They have the largest coverage. Even when you don't recharge your DSTV, you can get it. Thank you very much. And want to recognize the Guardian newspaper, and is there the bureau chief? Is there? You're welcome, ma. You're welcome. Thank you very much. Thank you. Let's go ahead with the rest of the program. Now, I have the honor to respectfully invite the chair occupant of the Nimi Briggs Chair in Obstetrics and Gynecology, Professor Ngozi Orazulike, to kindly come forward for the welcome address. Please put your hands together as we welcome to the podium Professor Ngozi Orazulike.
Thank you very much, dear University Public Relations Officer. Good afternoon, everyone. Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt, Owner Ejodwill, the principal officers and management of the university. Past Vice Chancellors and Pro-Chancellors of University of Port Harcourt, the President, West African College of Surgeons, Professor Ibrahim Yakasai, Vice Chancellors of other universities, the Data Briggs, wife of Emeritus Professor Nimi Dimkpa Briggs, and the children of Emeritus Professor Nimi Dimkpa Briggs, Nina Kikamboma, and all the distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen here present. I just want to continue. I don't want to continue on the protocol already established, but I wanted to greet all of you here today. Before I start, please, I want you to permit me to share this video of the great man in whose honor we gather today, and whom our indefatigable Vice Chancellor has already talked about. Let's just carefully watch this video about him.
Another problem came again in the university. They called me again to become acting vice chancellor. I acted for 6 months, then the university made me the vice chancellor. Then I retired, and the university appointed me emeritus professor. And today, you gave me the highest honor in the university.
I know you all want to continue, but I just wanted us to hear his voice again. Because some of us say, I don't know who he is. But even if you know him, this voice you've heard is typical Professor Emeritus Nimi Dimkpa Briggs. I'm very grateful to you all that found time to join us on this auspicious occasion. And I consider myself privileged to play a service role in the perpetuation of the legacy of this great medical practitioner, educator, mentor, ace administrator, shrewd philosopher, and statesman who occupied so much space in his lifetime. The Nimi Briggs Professorial Chair of Obstetrics and Gynecology was endowed in recognition of his significant contributions to scholarship, research, and leadership, which have been widely recognized and applauded in and outside Nigeria. And so this chair was established to ensure that his academic excellence, mentorship, and meritorious services to humanity continue to impact younger academics and future generations and aspire them to greater public service, such as the young ones we invited here today. Professor Emeritus Nimi Briggs' contributions include, but are not limited to, health, women's health in particular, medical education, university administration, the electoral process, politics, and national development. So you can see he was a man of many parts. And that's why we take each aspect of his life to model after these legacy lectures. As chair occupant, my team and I are totally committed to following in the hallowed and giant footprints of this great man. We are willing and ready to drive quality research and other activities in the admirable tradition that was established by him in his impactful lifetime. Our gathering here today is a confirmation of his solid contributions to many facets of our lives. So since the activation of this chair after his death in 2023, the Nimi Briggs Legacy Lecture Series has hosted 2 legacy lectures and 1 webinar. The first lecture was in 2024, and this focused on university administration, an aspect of his life. And it was delivered by a foremost educationist and former executive secretary of the National Universities Commission, Professor Peter Okebukola. I'm sure most of you were here 2 years ago then. The second in the series, which took place in February 2025, that's last year, dwelt on health and was delivered by Associate Professor Ibrahim Wada, a consummate obstetrician and gynecologist with specialization in in vitro fertilization. And if you remember, he spoke to us on the longevity of man. Today's lecture is the third in the series and fulfills our core mandate to keep the mosaic of issues he championed on the front burner of intellectual discourse. I'm pleased to inform this distinguished audience that this year, we are extremely privileged to attack as the guest lecturer, a very big masquerade, Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, OFR, an iconic national and globally rated academic and administrator, to address us on an issue of pressing national importance. And I dare say, as I looked at his citation, I found out that we have something in common. Professor Jega and I are both alumni of the University of Oxford. And interestingly, we share in common the Barbanic School of Government of Policies. So, Professor Jega's lecture fits into the context of Emeritus Professor Nimi Briggs' role as erstwhile chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission, RISEC, in which capacity he conducted credible elections, thus played a decisive role in setting the tone for the economic rebirth of Rivers State. I'm sure that nobody in this auditorium this afternoon will be surprised that the issue of adopting appropriate modalities for conducting credible elections in Nigeria is generating such huge interest. Our guest lecturer today is a subject matter expert in this fair and will no doubt bring to bear his wealth of knowledge and experience. We are confident that this topic will change our orientation and approach to the much anticipated 2027 elections and indeed future elections in Nigeria. So our webinar series was launched in November 2025 with the first delivered by Professor Jude Uzoma Oheri, a renowned psychiatrist and a fellow of the Academy of Science. He spoke to us on a mindful campus, building a compassionate and socially intelligent university community. Mr. Vice Chancellor, I'm sure you remember the very funny lecture we had on the webinar. This stage set the stage and created awareness for the research on promoting mental well-being and resilience among students of this unique university, where Emeritus Professor Briggs served twice as acting Vice Chancellor, you heard him say that, before he was appointed substantive fifth Vice Chancellor from 2000 to 2005. So the chair secured this third fund research grant for this research, and we're currently recruiting participants, students of our unique university. We are in the pilot phase of a huge impact research on prevention of maternal mortality through early screening using biomarkers from one of its causes called preeclampsia. Preeclampsia is a hypertensive disorder of pregnancy, and it's been killing our women. So we are doing research on this, the pilot phase. But for this particular one, we had to resort to crowdfunding because we couldn't get, we're still trying to get the grants. And we secured this crowdfunding through what we call the Great Walk Fundraiser. The Great Walk Fundraiser was an adult hike for 5 days across 50 kilometers of different parts of the ancient Great Wall of China. And it was undertaken by me, of which the idea was encouraged by Professor Briggs even before his passing. I'll tell you a brief story of what happened. So my passion is hiking, and Professor Briggs also has a love for fitness. So I had submitted the Mount Kilimanjaro in 2015. And when he heard that I did that, he was so proud and very boastful. Anybody he saw, he would say, oh, my protege, she climbed the mountain, Kilimanjaro, the highest mountain in Africa. He even told me that once they were flying over there, he told the captain, my protege flew over this, submitted the whatever. So the next time he asked me, what was your next expedition? I said, I came to climb the Great Wall of China. He said, oh, he's been there. Him and his wife, they went there, but just on holiday, and they took a few pictures. And then he started from then to encourage me. In 2020, I signed up for it, but I couldn't go because of the COVID. So when we got this chair, I said in his memory, I must complete this project. I used to raise funds for research, of which he's very passionate about. Please, can we share a video? Just kindly listen to this video before I continue. This is me on the Great Wall of China doing the hike. This is day one, and this is the highest peak for today. From here, we're going to be going down. We've already done about half an hour. It's very interesting. It's exhausting, but it's for a good cause. Remember, this hike is to reduce maternal deaths from preeclampsia. Donate to my cause, donate to our cause, and donate generously. We have to reduce maternal deaths from preeclampsia. Great Wall of China hike, reduce maternal deaths. Thank you. Thank you very much. Other activities and ongoing research of the chair are available on our website, nimibrigschair.uniport.edu.ng. In closing, I want to express gratitude to the following who, with their support and solidarity, this event was bettered. They include no other than our digital, indefatigable ninth Vice Chancellor, Professor Unari George, for always giving us the enabling environment to work and be productive in the line of duty, and of course, his management team within. Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, for accepting our invitation. I really bothered you, I'm sorry, sir, to deliver the third legacy lecture in the series, and we hope that his submission will bring a paradigm shift to the conduct of elections in Nigeria. The entire Briggs family of Abonima, notably his widow, Lady Deta Briggs, for their unflagging interest in the activities of the chair. His children, Nina, Ika, Buma, their spouses, his sister, and her husband, for their continued support to ensure the perpetuity of the chair and legacy of their dear father and brother-in-law. Professor Emeritus Ajenka, who endowed the chair during his time as Vice Chancellor, and immediate past chair occupant, Professor Kimalo, for their guidance. The College of Health Sciences and Department of Obstetrics and Gynecology implementation committees of the chair and researchers at the Nimi Briggs chair for their common dedication and steadfastness to our core mandates. Please, members of the committee, stand up briefly for recognition wherever you are. Our generous donors, some of whom are here physically in this auditorium, and those that are virtual online. They contribute their hard-earned finances to support ongoing research by the chair. We are indebted to you all. My dear husband, Neto, and our sons, Kamsi and Kosi, my pillars of strength and greatest cheerleaders. Kindly pardon me if I did not specifically mention your name or contributions to the laudable cause. All of you here present this afternoon underscore the importance and urgency of the topic that Professor Jega will shortly speak on. And you indeed matter to us. You are all welcome to join us on this exciting journey to promote the great legacies of Professor Emeritus Nimi Dimkpa Briggs, of which our mandate is to build partnerships and engage in quality research that will improve our little corner of the world. Enough said. Please, let us listen to the man of the moment, Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, OFR. While I thank you for listening to me, you are all very welcome. Thank you.
Please, can we give her a big round of applause? She has done a wonderful work. For some of you who have never worked with her, she knows how to dot the I's, cross the T's. She is very, very thorough. I have not rested, but thank God we have come to the program today. Thank you very much, ma. Thank you. Very thorough, very thorough. Thank you very much. I'm glad we have people like you still in this world. Thank you very much. Professor Ngozi Orazulike, thank you very much. That's the chair occupant. Let me inform us that the next item here is very, very important, but my attention was called to one or two persons here that I should just recognize them, just one or two. Thank you very much. We have very distinguished Professor Nka Gineme in our midst today. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome, sir. Very humble, unassuming, but very, very cerebral. Welcome, sir. And we have the wife of the 8th Vice Chancellor in our midst today, Dr. Mrs. Lale is here. You're welcome, ma. You're welcome, ma. Thank you very much. And then we also have the diaspora professor. You are welcome, sir. Professor Vincent Ndemyo. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. Very known all over the U.S. One of the best pharmacists in that part of the world. And he's helping us here. Thank you. Thank you very much. Not the one that gives medicine, I mean pharmaceutical. Thank you very much. It is time for us to eat the big meat at the moment. And I have the honor to invite Professor Fidelis Allen, Director, Center for Politics, University of Port Harcourt, to kindly step forward and do a citation on the man of the moment, Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, OFRO. Over to you, sir.
The Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt, Honorary Abraham Judgewell, the Deputy Vice Chancellors, Principal Officers of the University of Port Harcourt, the Chair Occupant, Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, our guest lecturer for today. Ladies and gentlemen, citation on Attahiru Muhammadu Jega, OFR. Professor Attahiru Muhammadu Jega was the chairman, Independent National Electoral Commission, Nigeria, between June 2010 and June 2015, during which time he presided over the preparation and conduct of the widely acclaimed 2011 and 2015 general elections. Prior to being at INEC, he was the Vice Chancellor of Bayero University, Kano. Between September 5, 2005 and June 30, 2010. He was also one-time Deputy Vice Chancellor Academic, 1995 to 1996. He was Director, Center for Democratic Research and Training, 2000 to 2004. President, Academic Staff Union of Universities, ASU, 1988 to 1994. And Vice President, ASU, 1986 to 1988. Professor Jega was born in Kaduna on January 11, 1957. He attended Sabongari and town primary schools in Jega from 1963 to 1969 and government secondary school Benin Kebbi from 1970 to 1974. He did preliminary studies at ABC ABU, Kano, 1974 to 1975, and obtained his Bachelor of Science in Political Science from ABU, Zaria, in 1978. After NYSC in the former Cross River State, 1978, 1979, he was employed as a graduate assistant by Bayero University, Kano in July 1979. Subsequently, he obtained an MA in 1981, a postgraduate diploma in African Studies in 1982, and PhD in 1985 from Northwestern University, Evanston, Illinois, United States of America. All the degrees are in political science. He rose to the rank of Professor of Political Science at Bayero University in October 1997. Professor Jega has published extensively on Nigerian politics, elections, democratization, identity politics, and transition to democracy, among others. He is a recipient of many prestigious awards, including Nigerian National Honors Award of Officer of the Federal Republic, OFR, in 2005. IFES Charles T. Manat Democracy Award in 2015, and ICPS Election Commissioner of the Year Awards in 2013 and 2015. He is also a recipient of 5 honorary doctorate degrees from Afe Babalola University, Ado Ekiti, University of Nigeria in Nsukka, Modibo Adama University of Science and Technology, Yola, University of Lagos, and Federal University of Agriculture, Abeokuta. Professor Jega was a visiting senior research fellow at the Nigerian Institute of International Affairs, 1992-1993. A Swedish Institute fellow at the Department of Political Science, University of Stockholm, 1994. Visiting fellow at St. Peter's College, University of Oxford, 1996. And visiting scholar at George Mason University, March to September 2016. He was also a visiting fellow in practice at the Blavatnik School of Government, University of Oxford, September 2016 to March 2017. And a visiting senior research fellow at the Malaysian Commonwealth Studies Center. He is affiliated to Trinity College, Cambridge University, as a visiting fellow commoner, April to July 2024. Professor Jega served as a member on the Kofi Annan Foundation's Electoral Integrity Initiative, as well as the Nigerian Tertiary Education Fund Research and Development Standing Committee. Additionally, he is a member of the International Advisory Council of Afrobarometer, as well as of the Board of Directors of the International Foundation for Electoral Systems. Professor Jega was Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of Governing Council of the following universities: Plateau State University, Bokos, 2015 to 2020. University of Jos, 2021 to 2023. And Sadatu Remi University of Education, Kano State, 2023 to 2024. Professor Jega is currently the Pro-Chancellor and Chairman of the Governing Councils of Osman Fodio University, Sokoto, and Nasarawa State University, Kefi. Chairman, Academic Advisory Board, National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies. Chairman, Board of Trustees of Bayero University Alumni Association. Co-Chairman, Presidential Livestock Reforms Implementation Committee. And Advisor to Mr. President, Coordinator of Livestock Reforms. It is therefore with great honor and deep respect that I present to you an erudite political scientist, distinguished administrator, and patriot, Professor Attahiru Jega, Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in warmly welcoming our guest speaker.
The Vice Chancellor, University of Port Harcourt, Professor Bonari A. Georgewell, Lady Data Briggs, wife of our eminent Professor Nimi Dimkpa Briggs, and family here present. Our host, the chair occupant, Professor Ngozi Razulike, distinguished invited guests, ladies and gentlemen, I adopt the already established protocol. Let me say that I'm greatly honored to be asked to present the third Nimi Dimkpa Briggs Legacy Lecture, and I appreciate the organizers for finding me worthy of this honor. First, I must say that I met Professor Nimi Briggs when he was Vice Chancellor of this great university. He was, of course, acting Vice Chancellor twice before then, and I believe he probably is the only person with such a distinction in the Nigerian university system. Professor Briggs was an amazing story of how he worked diligently and assiduously expand and develop this great university into an excellent, globally competitive citadel of learning and research. I know if there is any one person that can be said to be responsible for turning around this university, a very critical moment, definitely would be Professor Nimi Briggs. As the chairman of INEC, I became aware of the Herculean effort he made as chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission to bring integrity to bear in the preparation and conduct of local government elections. And I was so happy and proud of his excellent work that I accepted his invitation to join him in the public presentation of the publications which he made from that experience here in Port Harcourt, I think in 2011. At INEC, we encouraged other chairmen of state independent electoral commissions to draw appropriate, adaptable lessons from the excellent work done by Professor Briggs as chairman of the Rivers State Independent Electoral Commission. Subsequently, I worked even more closely with him in 3 other committees at the federal level. First, when he was chairman of the Committee of Pro-Chancellors of Federal Universities, and I joined the committee as a member. In addition to the routine work of the Committee of Pro-Chancellors of Federal Universities, he also chaired the federal government ASU negotiations, and his team made an invaluable recommendations which were regrettably truncated by what I call reckless and insensitive federal government officials at that time. The recently concluded, very successfully, Federal Government ASU Agreements of 2006, chaired by Alhaji Ayale Ahmed, drew lessons from that chaired by Professor Briggs and contained many important recommendations carried over from that previous commendable effort. Second, we also worked together as members of the Committee of Pro-Chancellors of State Universities between 2019 and 2021. And thirdly, and perhaps most significantly, as members of the National Universities Commission Strategic Advisory Committee, which was appointed at that time by Executive Secretary Professor Abakar Adamu Rashid, and which was chaired by Professor Peter Okebukola. And I have no doubt that Professor Briggs' contribution in that committee was so significant and have helped tremendously in terms of repositioning and revitalizing Nigerian universities in this country. I can say that Professor Briggs' experience, wisdom, and what I call exuding intellectual acumen guided that committee to make many impactful recommendations to the NUC on how best to revitalize and reposition Nigerian universities for global competitiveness, as well as greater and more impactful contributions to Nigeria's national development. In summary, I can confidently say that I considered Professor Nimi Briggs, may his soul rest in peace, as an elder brother, as a distinguished academic and intellectual, as an iconic medical professional, as a patriotic Nigerian, as a simple and unassuming gentleman, as a person with tremendous integrity, and indeed a mentor from whom I learned quite a lot within the short period of time that I got to know and interact with him. For me, therefore, it is not only a great honor to deliver this lecture, I consider it a duty to accept to do so, to participate in celebrating him and his contributions to Nigeria and humanity in general, and especially to contribute to deepening and entrenching his remarkable legacy. Nigeria needs many more Nimi Briggs for its stable growth and equitable development. And it's very, very important, therefore, we entrench his legacy. I have been asked to speak on the importance of credible elections for Nigeria's national development. I have been away from the electoral arena for more than 10 years now, and I cannot speak very confidently about what is happening nowadays, except that I have following and reading about it. But I think all of us as ordinary citizens know that credible elections, or what some scholars increasingly nowadays call elections with integrity, which are based on a properly conceptualized and operated electoral system, are necessary for and desirable in Nigeria. They are essential for Nigeria's political stability and as a critical foundation for national development. While an electoral system alone, no matter how credible, cannot guarantee development, nonetheless, it plays a crucial enabling role, especially in countries espousing liberal democracy. Electoral systems that promote inclusion, accountability, and stability are more likely to sustain national development. In contrast, a compromised electoral system without doubt leads to weak institutions, discourages political participation, and erodes trust in the state by provoking and sustaining political unrest and governance crises which undermine efforts at national development. Now, Nigeria has been on a trajectory of liberal democratic development of the elected presidential variant continuously since 1999. In fact, since independence, it was like a colonial legacy that we inherited in our political development to be on the liberal democratic trajectory. First Republic is also on a liberal democratic trajectory, even though of the parliamentary type. In this system, at intervals of 4 years, elections are conducted for the executives, namely the president and vice president, and governor and his deputy, for members of the legislative assemblies at both federal and state levels, and other off-season elections are conducted when vacancies occur as a result of death or resignation or removal. Now, in any democratic or democratizing country, electoral integrity is the foundational element for achieving broader democratic governance and ensuring that citizens have a meaningful role in shaping the political landscape of their country for their country's development. One of the major challenges facing Nigeria in her democratic development lies in how to remarkably enhance the integrity of its electoral processes and how to make elections truly fair, free, transparent, and credible, such that citizens as voters would feel that the votes they cast are not wasted, that their votes count, and the candidates in the elections would accept the outcome as declared by the Electoral Commission, even when they lose, and they would also eschew frivolous litigation and violent actions. In practice, however, since 1999, we have seen a decline in terms of these required qualities of an electoral system in a liberal democratic context. From 1999 to 2007, the integrity of our elections can be said to have declined to the extent that by 2007, globally, outcome of that election was considered as the worst in terms of credibility in the history of our country. Indeed, even the elected president at that time, President Umaru Musa Yar'Adua, acknowledged that in his inaugural speech and committed to bringing about reform measures that can improve the integrity of our country's election. And he did so by establishing the Muhammad Lawal Uwais Electoral Reform Committee, which made recommendations which were subsequently accepted by President Jonathan, who succeeded him after his death. Following the Electoral Reform Commissions, remarkable efforts were made to improve the integrity of Nigerian elections, and to move away from that general global negative perception of Nigerian elections as lacking integrity. So between 2011 and 2019, efforts were made to increase the integrity of our elections in terms of the preparation and conduct of elections, in terms of introduction of the use of technology to ensure authentication and the verification of voters in order to address the perennial problem of fraudulent voting in our elections. But by 2023, regrettably, I think many observers of the Nigerian election had begun to also notice serious decline. And the concern now is, as we move to 2027 elections, unless serious efforts are made, frankly, we may be back, God forbid, to the history of 2007 elections. So it's very, very important. If anything, this underscores the need to recognize the significance and the importance of credible elections, of conducting elections with integrity, and to work towards ensuring that before the elections next year, substantial efforts and improvements are brought to bear, particularly through citizens' vigilance in participating in the electoral process, in observing the elections, and in ensuring that the right things are done. Electoral integrity offers the best chance of having responsible and responsive elected public officials in all branches of government, as well as in bringing about good democratic governance, which is required for governance to be able to meet the needs and aspirations of citizens. And given the significance attached to electoral integrity in the electoral system, scholars are increasingly using electoral integrity as an important measure of democratic development and democratic consolidation in countries that espouse democracy. Any country that wishes to nurture and entrench its democracy ignores the imperative of electoral integrity on its own terrain. Serious attention needs to be focused on making the Nigerian electoral system to become among the best, and as soon as is possible, in terms of the integrity of its preparation and the conduct, and of course the subsequent announcement of results. Credible elections are therefore of great importance for Nigeria's progress and development, and we must strive very hard to bring that about. In the sense of strengthening the institutions, improving the processes, enhancing the mechanisms, and rebuilding trust, and also on the need to be continuously vigilant as we make what I call incremental positive changes to our electoral system. I think the major challenge also that we as citizens have to address is our impatience for change. In our country, of course, because things have been so bad for so long, we are disappointed with the little incremental positive changes that are necessary and that need to be consolidated over time before we can see serious impact. So the disappointments we get because the speed of change and progress is not to our satisfaction makes us to become either detached or removed or withdrawn from the electoral process. And unfortunately, the more we do that, the more we allow those bad people who have occupied the space to continue to do so. And of course, the consequences negatively affect all of us. So frankly, there is no sitting on the fence when it comes to recognizing that we have to have credible elections. We all need to participate actively, and we also need to be eternally vigilant. When we look at the declining rate of participation in elections, it's very, very worrisome. When we did the election in 2015, we got about 27% voter turnout. 57% voter turnout. By the time in 2011, by the time we did the election again in let me get the statistics. 2011, it was 53.7% turnout, voter turnout. By 2015, it came down to 43.65. By 2019, it came down to 34.75. By 2023, it came down to 26.72. And of course, the FCT elections that took place last weekend, people are talking about 7, maximum 11% participation by citizens. It's a very, very disturbing trend. Meanwhile, election is the foundation of the governance system we use, but increasingly, citizens are withdrawing from participating in the process. And of course, the more we withdraw, the more we allow those who capture the system and the processes to continue to do what they do, which is not in the larger interest of all citizens in terms of good governance, and which also has serious negative consequences in terms of national development. So I took time to do this long introduction because as I go through the presentation, I will skip some of the points. Luckily, the paper has already been produced and circulated. But let me just say that the way I structured this presentation is that after the introduction, I have a section of what I call conceptualizing electoral systems. It's a bit academic, but in social sciences, as I believe in all sciences, conceptual clarity is very, very important. When we say electoral systems, what do we mean? When we say electoral integrity, what do we mean? And so on and so forth. I tried to do that. I will touch upon them very, very briefly. But I discussed what I call key indicators of electoral integrity. And I believe these are things that we as citizens need to pay attention to. We must ensure that in our interactions with the legislators, in our interactions with government, in our interactions as members of civil society with the electoral commissions, whether at the federal or state levels, we make advocacy and we pay attention to the need for having these key indicators of electoral integrity. I then discuss the importance of electoral integrity in sustaining national development. I identified specifically obstacles to electoral integrity from the Nigerian experience. And then I also discuss recommendations with regards to how to address the challenges in our own context and how to improve the integrity of our elections. I think the first, when we try to define electoral system, I first said that an electoral system is a set of laws, regulations, guidelines, and mechanisms that govern electoral competition between candidates and parties. And of course, in terms of all the ranges in the electoral cycle, from the preparation of the register of voters to the constituency delimitation to actual voter education and sensitization, the production of election materials, and to the actual preparation and conduct of elections pre-election, election day, and the post-election, which has to do with results declaration. An electoral system involves the rules that translate votes into seats. And according to Taylor and others, once an electoral system is established, it remains fairly constant. And only a political crisis within an established democracy may lead to a momentum for electoral change. There are three categories of electoral systems. You have the majority plurality system, and that is the one we inherited in Nigeria from British colonial rule. There is what is called the proportional representation system. This is a system that we either have been so comfortable with the majoritarian system that we have not looked carefully at it, even though some civil society organizations have been pushing for it. Proportional representation actually improves inclusivity of citizens in the legislative bodies, to some extent even in the governance framework. It is only recently that we have civil society organizations organizing to make advocacy for inclusivity. For example, what is happening now is the demands for quota for women in the National Assembly. But there is also what is called a mixed system. That is combination of some aspects of proportional representation is some aspects of majoritarian or plurality system. Most post-colonial countries inherited their electoral systems from their former colonial masters. Only a few have done their best to review and reform their electoral systems based on their post-colonial experiences. It is worth noting that democratic systems differ in their electoral systems and in their institutions for maintaining the rule of law and the electoral process about who should govern. An effective electoral system can add to the momentum of political change, encourage popular participation, and enable the emergence of legitimate representatives who are capable of handling a wide range of needs and expectations immediately and in the future. On the other hand, it can also derail progress towards strengthening democracy or even political stability. As Reynolds and others said, for an electoral system to be successful, it must build understanding and trust, not just among politicians and election administrators, but also among civil society organizations, among commentators, and above all, among the citizens of a country undergoing democratic reform. What about electoral integrity? Generally, electoral integrity matters because it is about how an electoral system is managed in terms of professionalism, ethical standards, and freeness and fairness of the preparations and conduct of elections. Electoral integrity has to do with the conduct of elections at all stages of the electoral cycle, including the pre-election period, the campaign, the polling day, and the aftermath of the election. Kofi Annan, who established what he called Electoral Integrity Initiative before his demise, after he served as Secretary General of the UN, and having observed elections, particularly in the so-called developing countries, believed very strongly that efforts have to be made and by citizens in order to improve the integrity of elections. And he defines an election with integrity as follows. Any election that is based on the democratic principles of universal suffrage and political equality as reflected in international standards and agreements, and is professional, impartial, and transparent in its preparation and administration throughout the electoral cycle. We do a lot of, or rather we show a lot of concern about improving the integrity of our elections. But frankly, in terms of actual serious work, adapt global principles to establish global standards and apply them and adapt them to our own context, we don't seem to be doing enough. And it is important as we pursue electoral reforms that citizens push for this and increasingly get involved in this. Electoral integrity, ideally, is the absence of malpractices and fraudulent activities in the preparation, management, and conduct of all aspects of the electoral process, which enables contestants and voters engage with the electoral process with fairness, with equity and justice, such that the outcome is deemed as legitimate and acceptable. But while we say this also, we have to make a caveat. There is no perfect electoral system. There is no perfect elections. In fact, there is no, any country cannot talk about elections that are perfect in terms of integrity, in terms of professionalism, and so on. So I think it's a caveat we must recognize. But the important thing is to keep on adding value and improving and trying to approximate the ideal in terms of the substantive quality of the elections so that it can bring out people, elected representatives or people into the executive arms of government who are responsible and who are responsive to the needs and the expectations of the citizens who have elected them these elections. What are the key indicators of electoral integrity? Let me just highlight some of these. First of all, there has to be a good electoral legal framework. And basically, good constitutional provisions that provide relative independence to an election management body that has good provisions in terms of guaranteeing not only the safety, but the fundamental freedom of people as they engage in the electoral process. In addition to the constitutional provisions, there are also legislative enactments. In the Nigerian context, that's what we call the electoral acts that are passed by the National Assembly. So it's a very, very important indicator. If there is good legal framework, so it's a good indicator that a country is on the trajectory of having elections with integrity. But to actually have elections with integrity, it goes beyond just what is in the legal framework. It goes to the issue of how the laws are implemented and how various stakeholders involved in the electoral process respect the law, apply the law. Whether it is the Electoral Commission in its work, but most especially the political parties and the candidates that come into the electoral arena. The Electoral Commission is also required to provide supplementary regulations and guidelines which help in the implementation, in the discharge of their responsibilities in the context of the established legal framework. And then there is the fundamental principle of ensuring that elections are free and fair in terms of equality of opportunity for all registered voters in participating without hindrance in the electoral process. But another key indicator is legitimacy, the extent to which government drives authority from the consent of the governed as expressed through elections. This is very, very important. In some of our developing countries, you hear people winning elections, it's 99% of the votes. In Nigeria, we haven't yet got to that level, but if care is not taken, we are almost going in that direction, you know. But it's not about the percentage of vote that a candidate or a party gets. It is about the legitimacy, the respectability that voters have for the outcome of the process, and the recognition in terms of the legitimacy of the regime in power. And quite often we see a wide variance between the votes that candidates or parties are said to have acquired and the respectability that goes with that in terms of citizens' recognition and legitimization of that process. So a government that emerges from an election and is legitimate in terms of citizens' appreciation of outcome of the election is a very important indicator of the integrity of the election. Another indicator relates with political pluralism in terms of whether it's a multi-party competition by various political parties, how free are parties to compete, does the governing party use incumbency factors, undermine other parties, is there accessibility, for example, to public media but for all parties without discrimination? All these are indicators of the integrity of an election. And then the next one is protection of civil liberties, not just during the electoral process, but throughout the election cycle. Then access to justice is a cornerstone as an indicator of electoral integrity. After an election, parties to the election go to court. How assured are they that they will get justice in the review process by the judiciary? Let me quickly say a few things about national development. When you talk about national development, it's very important we are clear about what national development is. To my mind, there has always been a confusion theoretically and in the practice of development in many of our countries. Theoretically, beginning from the neoclassical economic arguments, when they define development, the limitation is with regards to GDP growth, and if they go further to look at issues of distribution, then they look at what they call the per capita distribution of national income. So what is GDP, for example, of Nigeria? How do you divide it among citizens, and how does it compare with other countries? That was the original classical or neoclassical definition of development. But over time, people moved from that to contest that when you discuss about economic growth in general, it does not tell you much about who are the beneficiaries of this growth. So some scholars started talking about what they call growth with equity. How are the benefits of growth distributed in society? So other measures were then introduced as a measure of development beyond just gross national product or MP per capita. So people started looking, for example, at physical quality of life. So it is not just that Nigeria or X country has this size of GMP, but what is the physical quality of life of its citizens? And from that, they developed even more widespread, equitable indicators, such as the Human Development Index. So when we speak about development in Nigeria, I think we need to just go beyond the issue of growth of GDP. When you listen to government positions, the measure is GDP has grown from last year to this year by X percentage. How does it reflect in terms of the physical quality of life of citizens, and how does it in particular aid to the Human Development Index? I think it's very, very important. But when I talk, and the reason why I do this is when I speak about credible elections, the importance of credible elections to national development. I'm talking about national development in the context of addressing the fundamental needs and the expectations of citizens. And their needs and the expectations are expressed by those whom they have elected into the governance process. Because the governance process is through which the national economy is managed, and therefore through which the benefits of development are distributed. So it's very important, and I try to explain this in the presentation. So I now come to what I call importance of credible elections and the electoral integrity for national development. I believe that the importance of electoral integrity in sustaining national development cannot be overemphasized. This is, as Kofi Annan once argued, that power and competition for power must be regulated. And elections that are credible and regulate access to power in terms of who are elected to man both legislative and executive positions. It is not enough for governments to create institutions. Politicians must respect and safeguard the independence and professionalism of elected officials, judges, and the courts. Elections generally constitute a core element of democratic governance. Therefore, the quality of electoral integrity has serious implications for political stability, for institutional legitimacy, for public trust, and overall national development. The nexus between electoral integrity and good democratic governance produces credible leadership, effective rule of law, citizen participation, governmental accountability, and the protection of civil liberties, which ultimately contribute to national development. So a sustainable electoral process, particularly one with integrity, is a major requirement, not only for democratic development, but also for national development. In a country like Nigeria, the importance of electoral integrity for sustaining national development depend on the following. One, it ensures those who assume public office have the consent of the governed, beyond the rituals, but in terms of the reality of the outcome. It also requires transparency, impartial security deployment, and credible results reduce tensions and violent conflicts during and after elections. And also, it requires citizens' confidence in the political processes, because when people trust electoral process, the voter turnout rises, political participation increases, and social cohesion improves. Elections remain one of the major specific purpose vehicles for countries' democratic development, as well as for socio-economic development, which improves the lives and the livelihood of citizens. If election of representatives is done credibly with integrity, elections help to put a country on a stable and sustainable trajectory for democratic consolidation and development. And to my mind, when you look at the history of electoral reform in our country, even if you limit it to just from 1999 to date, the focus is on processes and procedures and the legal framework, and maybe the mechanisms within INEC, which are improved upon by the use of technology. But the major challenge is the mindset and the attitude of the operators in the Electoral Commission, and also of the contestants, whether at the level of political parties or even as candidates in the electoral process. So, and from my own little experience in the Commission, frankly, this is an area where little, if anything, has changed. The politicians have consistently exhibited the attitude which Passenger described in 2000, which is the do or die mentality as they engage with. We must win by hook or by crook. And all means are necessary. The goal and the objective is to be declared as a winner of election. And we have seen so many terrible examples of this. We had a state where an incumbent governor who wanted to go to Senate put, or not he physically, but got others to put a gun to the head of a returning officer to declare him elected. And the reason is that, look, the law at that time is that once the elections, the returns are made, it's only the election tribunals that can look and do a review if necessary. And many of these people believe that if they can be declared, then they can take care of the challenge of litigation. And that happened. There are many people who are either threatened or induced as election officials, and who have made such false declaration. Regrettably, only one of them ended up being prosecuted and jailed, even jailed for 2 years. In fact, recently I was telling some people that we don't have serious investigative journalism. I will not be surprised if that person is not still in jail, because he facilitated the election in court of a very prominent senator. And we know that even petty criminals can pay for somebody to serve their jail terms. I will not be surprised if such people really are not even in jail. So it's a very, very serious issue. I'm using it to illustrate the fact that if the mentality of our politicians and their disposition is not democratic. And if it changes, you cannot build democracy without Democrats. What that means, you can have test of laws. They will either use money or use threats or whatever so that they get. So the big question mark is, while we do electoral reforms in terms of improving the legal framework, improving the processes in the independent national election, what can we do to ensure that hundreds of politicians who engage in the electoral process actually have democratic mindsets? They can go into election, it's a competition, it's a contest, win or lose. And if you win, because you are popular among electors, then when you get in there, you become responsible and responsive to the needs and aspirations of those who elected you in government. If you lose, you work towards another time and try to get elected. That's a big challenge in our democratic development. And it is also leading to state capture. Because the more they capture power through the electoral process, the more they use that power to access wealth that is unearned, really steal public coffers, and then the more they now use this resource and entrench themselves in power. When INEC introduced technology, everybody thought that it was improving integrity of the process. In 2015 in particular, we had election results which moved upon by the use of technology, even though the use of technology was not perfect. It was the first time it was. But by 2019, politicians realized that rather than what they were doing in the past, which is to mobilize people, pay them, come and get them to queue in the polling units, get accredited, because card reader prevented that from happening. By the time INEC introduced beavers, what they were doing is just to go buy the voters, convey them to the nations. That's why people in some areas talk about spaghetti. Yes, it has happened. It's happening. So they will give money. They will yards. Still mobilize people to come and vote. So that mentality, I'm sorry, that mentality, if it does not change, we can't lose hope, but it means citizens have a serious responsibility to, rather than disengage from the process, but to become even more actively involved. Many people will say that elections don't concern me. I want to make the sacrifice of staying in the sun for hours, past or 8 to ensure that the results are appropriately cleared. So it's very, very important to pay attention. So I have identified in the presentation what I call serious obstacles hindering electoral integrity in our country, and this mentality of our elite in the electoral process and the lack of democratic disposition amongst them, definitely a very significant. I must also make a caveat. I'm not saying all our politicians, but the preponderance of them, frankly, have that mentality. So it's the balance of few that are good are overwhelmed. And if people refuse to get engaged and to participate, then they will become fewer and fewer, and then the bad tendency actually becomes predominant. It's already remarkably predominant, but then it will be a total occupation. We can use that word. So frankly, exit is not the best option. And I'm saying this because speaking to a crop of the energy and the vibrancy to get involved and get involved constructively. We have to get more and more people involved in our electoral processes constructively for us to ensure the integrity of our elections and therefore ensure that that impacts appropriately on governance. So I'm trying to summarize, and I want to say that first and foremost, we must do everything possible to strengthen the integrity of our, because better the integrity of the, better the impact it national development. But it also means that all stakeholders need to recognize that they have a role to play. They must play that role constructively. And it is in this regard that I advocated for what I call an alliance for elections with integrity. In many civil society organizations that are involved in the electoral arena, many of them are involved in all they come together, all they work on the basis of a common agenda, focuses on improving the integrity of our elections. More likely the success that we require, improving the credibility and integrity of elections. But then more than that, we also need people in communities, in our places of residence. We need to actually show interest because our young men and women, the few that come out to register actually don't come out to vote. For many of them increasingly are also, as I mentioned earlier on, withdrawing even from registering. Meanwhile, they are also demanding for not only electronic transmission of results, but they also want electronic voting, you know, because it's easy, you can do it from room. But they are also not thinking about the context under which we operate. I've been a strong supporter of introducing election to improve the integrity of election. I'm also a strong supporter of saying that we must do that while making haste slowly, you know, because frankly, I have seen even introducing simple things relating to accreditation of voters. You know, you have serious challenges because our country is not what they call equipment manufacturer, so you can become too dependent on either software development or hardware procurement, and particularly the setting of the back end of the electoral system. And it's very, very important, therefore, whatever we do, we make sure that we have the confidence to ensure that we can do it and do it very well. And more recently, there is this debate before the passage of the 2026 Electoral Act on the issue of transmission of results. First of all, IREV, which everybody is talking about, as if it will be the final solution. If you send results, transmit results electronically to IREV, you know, then all the problems are solved. IREC was designed and conceived primarily as a viewing portal for the public. It is not the result collation system for INEC. There is a more secure back end where the results that are sent to IREV are also transmitted independently to the result collation system. So, but people are saying that if the final results do not reflect what goes into IREV, then it's the IREV results that should be considered. First, it will violate the law. Secondly, anything can go into IREV, as we have seen from the previous experience. And it is not as secure, and that's why it collapsed during the transmission process in 2023. Also, but it's amazing that civil society organizations were almost all unanimous in terms of saying that it is a result that is transmitted into IREV that must be considered. So frankly, it's a dangerous thing to do, and I'm glad, personally, I've not said, this is the first time I'm saying this. I try to keep my opinion from the debate, but it's always better to have traceability of results. So what the National Assembly has done to say that when push comes to shove, you will compare IREV, the final collation system of INEC, and the paper trail is very, very important. The only thing that remains now, to my view, is that INEC must then develop guidelines and regulations which are gazetted. Because unless they do that, then there will also now be confusion at the end of an election in terms of where does results from IREV stand and where do results from the final collation system result. So while we must improve our legal framework, we also need care so that we do not solve one problem and create another problem. And to be honest, I have serious worries as to whether this provision of the Electoral Act 2026 may not create more problems for us in the future. Let me say something again I haven't said publicly before. How many people know what happened, why the IREV collapsed in the first place in 2023? Many of us have been calling, and I think it's not too late. We must also make demand. There must be a public inquiry as to what happened to IREV on election day in 2023. It's very, very important because it goes back to the issue of reliance on consultants for software or even back-end development. I know for a fact that something happened that raises a lot of questions. Because the consultant who helped develop IREV was not in Nigeria on election day when it collapsed. So the question is why? Okay, and how can you have such a big, heavy consultancy to develop such an important thing that is being used for the first time in the country, and you are not in the country? And it took a long time before INEC was able to contact him. So it goes beyond just introducing technology. It goes also to the point of whether the technology that is deployed has integrity. And it's very, very important. And so that's the point I'm making, so that when I say that we must make haste slowly, very, very important that we take some of these things into consideration. So I know I'm taxing your patience, so let me just go to my conclusion. I wish to conclude by saying that few people, if any, can say credible elections are not important to national development. So what I have tried to do is just to emphasize the need to recognize how credible elections are necessary for national development that addresses the fundamental needs and the aspirations of citizens. And therefore, how all of us as citizens have a responsibility beyond just registering for voting or going to cast our votes, to pay attention to all the reform measures being introduced and to also be actively involved. Let not our frustration with the speed of positive change make us withdraw from the process. It is so important that we can't leave it to the politicians. We must all be involved. We must all be involved in our communities, in our organizations, professional or civil society organizations, and we must mobilize our citizens to recognize the value of their vote and to take that serious and to participate in the electoral process. And I must say that if we can do that, we can also help change the attitude of our reckless politicians and ensure that in a reasonable point of time, more and more people of integrity actually become credible participants in a credible electoral process. And that definitely will, what is desirable and what can bring the kind of positive changes that we require. We should all work towards ensuring that 2027 elections have much more integrity than the previous ones. We may think there is just 1 year to go, therefore there is no time to do anything. But frankly, if we can all get involved and engaged, be amazed at what little effort we can do within that limited time frame and impact positively on the outcome of 2027 elections. If we don't, then obviously we will get the outcome that we do not desire, that may negatively affect our development prospects, and I don't think that is even something that we should contemplate. So I want to thank you for this opportunity. I must say that, as I emphasize, that we need more Nimi Briggs, people who may have a profession and are excellent in that profession, but who have broader concern and understanding and involvement in things that help our national development. As I told you, professional obstetrics and gynecologist professional, but he had an opportunity to run the River State Electoral Commission. And I stand to be corrected. I don't think any chairman of River State Independent Electoral Commission has made such substantive contributions as he made when he was the chairman of that commission. And from the personal experiences I narrated in terms of how I interacted with him in other forums, everywhere he gave his best. And the lesson I took from that is that wherever we find an opportunity, we must do our best for our country. The more we do it, the better our country will be. May his soul rest in peace, and thank you very much.
Wow, another big round of applause for this man of honor, this man of integrity. You remember, He is widely respected for his integrity, commitment to electoral transparency, and contributions to democratic governance in Nigeria. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you very much, sir, for speaking truth to power. We really enjoyed it. How many of us enjoyed the lecture today? Wow, you can see the hand. It was super. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. We deeply appreciate. Now, to continue with the rest of the program, I would like to inform you that we also have some very distinguished persons who are with us online, all the way from Senegal. We have the former president of West Africa College of Surgeons, Professor Mark Gueye from Senegal is online. We thank you for joining us today. We also have another one, former president of West African College of Surgeons, Professor Bumi Ogedengwe. He's also online. Thank you very much. We have a host of other people online, so we thank you very much for finding time with us. We also have the rep of RISEC, Chairman River State, Professor Tobira is also in our midst today. You're welcome, sir. You're welcome. The Chairman of RISEC, represented by Professor Tobira. Thank you very much. We have a lot of people to recognize, but let's continue to proceed for the rest of the program, and I tell you that we will continue to recognize until the program comes to a close. Thank you very much. This time is another very special opportunity. If you look at the program, it's Response by the Family. It's time for Response by the Family. And I have the singular honor and privilege to respectfully welcome to the podium here the architect, Nimi Briggs, the son of Emeritus Professor Nimi Briggs, to kindly step forward and speak on behalf of the family. Please, can we encourage him?
Good afternoon, everyone. The Vice Chancellor, the Governing Council, distinguished guest, all protocols duly observed. To our special guest, thank you very much. I think it goes without saying the presentation was incredibly informative and educating. I particularly found very interesting the data set you provided that showed the decline, the voter apathy that had declined. But I sat there thinking to myself, because I was looking at it from a business perspective, it's also good to match that against the budget it's taking to conduct these elections. As the apathy increases, the budget has also increased. I'm sure the comedy is not lost on us. But thank you very much for that. That was an incredibly insightful paper. I would like to use this opportunity on behalf of my mother, my wife, my siblings, and the rest of the family my father left behind, to once again thank the university community. My father made this place home. My father sold himself into this place. And I must admit, 3 years down the line, three years plus down the line, this place has continued to honor him, and I thank you. We thank you very, very, very much for that. To the chair occupant, to the previous chair occupants, and the current chair occupant, thank you very, very much. But I'd like to also use this platform as an opportunity to encourage those who have a love for University of Port Harcourt, who believe strongly in the institution he was able to build, and the institution that continues to thrive today in his absence, in fact, go on to greater heights in his absence, to join hands to help develop this place, to join hands to help continue the legacy, to join hands to help deepen the values and the systems he's put in. He's so espoused and illustrated to us in so many ways. I'd like to use this opportunity to encourage each and every one of you, near, far, and wide, for those who love the university, for those who, as I go by, the more I go by, I find I get to meet people who knew him or who he knew, and the web just keeps growing larger and larger. It's so obvious that he had an incredible influence on so many lives, near, far, and wide. I find it as a thing of pride, but as a thing of incredible privilege to be born to such a person. I have to say thank you in absence, just in case you can hear me. Thank you very much. So I'd like to, on behalf of my mother, as I said, my wife, my sisters, and the entire family, I'd like to encourage as many as can to continue to support this chair. There are quite a lot of ideas. Again, I must commend the chair occupant. Incredible ideas she has brought to the table. Absolutely incredible. I'd like to say that there's quite a lot more that lies up ahead. But in closing, it wasn't actually meant to be part of this, but I think I'd add it now. The excellence we see in continuing the memory of this man can also be extended to wherever his name appears. And driving to the university, something caught my attention, which was the hostel building just before you come into, I think it's the first or second gate. And I think that place has been in a state for at least a decade now. So I'd like to use this as a clarion call, an opportunity to continue the legacy that he's left, an opportunity to continue the good memory we're seated here, exercising today, and an opportunity to uphold the values he really, really stood for. Thank you very much once again. I would not want to take too much of your time. It's a bit emotional for me, but I am grateful. I think that video, because that video you showed, it got to me. I think it got to many of us. Thank you very much once again.
Please, another big round of applause for the son of Emeritus Professor Nimi Briggs, who spoke on behalf of the family. Very quickly, I've been asked to effect a very small item here. There are some guests that are here, very few of them. I've been asked to just recognize their presence because they've traveled all the way from outside the shores of River State to be here, and I've been told to just quickly do that. Very respectfully, I would like to recognize Professor Andy, Distinguished Professor of Obstetrics and Gynecology, representing the Presidents of AFSIN, Professor Jamila Truko, the President of AFMSIN, you're welcome, sir. Professor Duru, the Chairman of the Faculty of Obstetrics and Gynecology, West African College of Surgeons, you're welcome, sir. We also like to recognize the presence of Professor Samuel Etuk, former President of AFMSIN, you're welcome. We also have Professor Jude O'Hire, the first guest lecturer for the webinar series of the chair. You're welcome to this program. We also like to recognize Professor Chris Bode, former Chief Medical Director of Lagos State University Teaching Hospital and the past Secretary of West African College of Surgeons. You're welcome, sir. I also like to recognize our former university PRO, Sir Williams Wadi. It's a delight to see you today. You're welcome, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Let me quickly inform us that we have come to this particular item, which is very important. Vote of thanks. May I respectfully invite the provost of one of the best College of Health Sciences in this part of the world. I am talking about the provost of the College of Health Sciences, University of Port Harcourt, Professor Ngozi Ekeke, for the vote of thanks.
Our chief host, and our digital golden and friend, children, student-loving Vice Chancellor, Professor Owunari A. Georgewell, principal officers of the university, our revered legacy lecturer, Professor Attahiru Muhammadu, Jega, members of the Briggs family, distinguished guests, colleagues, students, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the organizers and entire university committee, I rise to express our profound gratitude at the close of this remarkable legacy lecture. Today, we have not only listened to an intellectually rich discourse on the importance of a credible electoral system for national development, we have also gathered to honor the enduring legacy of late Emeritus Professor Nimi Dimkpa Briggs, former Vice Chancellor of the University of Port Harcourt. The lecture delivered by Professor Jega was both timely and illuminating. With clarity and depth, he demonstrated that credible elections are the bedrock of democratic government and sustainable national development. He reminded us that the transparency, accountability, and institutional integrity are indispensable to build public trust and national cohesion. We are deeply grateful, sir, to you for sharing your wealth of experience and scholarship. Your reflections have honored not only the theme of the lecture, but also the intellectual ideals that Emeritus Professor Briggs represented: integrity, excellence, courage, and principled leadership. As we remember late Professor Briggs, we recall a distinguished scholar, administrator, and statesman whose tenure as VC strengthened this university. His life was a testament to visionary leadership and service. This legacy lecture is a fitting tribute to a man who believed in strong institutions as a foundation for national progress. We sincerely thank the Briggs family for being part of this solemn and celebratory occasion. Your presence adds deep meaning to this event. To all of us that are gathered here, including past CMDs, CMDs, and all the people that have been recognized, I want to say thank you for your participation and engagement. Your presence reflects our collective commitment to preserving institutional memory and advancing scholarly dialogue. We also commend the organizing committee for their dedication, especially the chair and his supportive husband, and also for meticulously planning and ensuring the success of this program. Distinguished guests and friends of the university, we appreciate your solidarity and support. As we depart, may we carry forward both the message of today's lecture and the legacy of the great man in whose honor we have gathered. A legacy of integrity, service, scholarship, and nation building. On behalf of the organizers, I thank you all most sincerely. May the soul of Emeritus Professor N.D. Briggs continue to rest in perfect peace. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you, sir. That's the Provost of the College of Health Sciences of the University of Port Harcourt. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. May I respectfully invite the Vice Chancellor of the University of Port Harcourt for the Vice Chancellor's closing remarks. Please put your hands together for the Vice Chancellor.
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. Let me still adopt all the protocols we have adopted. Permit me to specifically greet our guest lecturer, Professor Attahiru Jega. Thank you very much. It can be said that no elections are perfect, and none are likely to ever be. Hence, electoral integrity is relative and is measured as a continuum from the extreme worst case scenario to the ideal best case scenario. The fewer the incidences of electoral malpractice, the more the integrity of the election. Our lecturer stated that electoral integrity must cover all points in the electoral cycle and is important to human rights and other democratic principles. Distinguished colleagues, acknowledging that no election is perfect is not cynicism, it is intellectual honesty. It is intellectual honesty, saying the truth as it is. Electoral integrity is protected across the entire cycle, not just on voting day. When credibility strengthens, democratic trust deepens. National development rests on systems people believe in, not just outcomes they receive. Distinguished colleagues, with this, we've come to the end of today's very wonderful third legacy series for Nimi, Dimkpa, Briggs. Thank you, and may God bless all of you. Thank you very much.
May I respectfully invite us to rise on our feet as we take the university anthem. It's going to be shown on the screen so you can sing along. The national anthem. Thank you very much. Please, this is the order we shall leave the hall. The Vice Chancellor, Principal Officers, and our guest speaker will leave first, and then all our guests will now follow. Please, let's give way for the Principal Officers of the University, the guest lecturer, and then we shall go for a group photograph. Please, leave the door, leave the door. Nobody should be at the door, please. Nobody should be at the door, please. Please, thank you very much. Thank you. Please respect that. Our guests and the principal officers will pass. Thank you. We shall go for a brief photograph. And then Arise and NTA Guardian, please, for a short interview, please. Immediately after the photograph. Thank you. Can we get some instrumental music, please?